Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Night Talk, where tonight we're joined by the ubiquitous and insightful Selena Zito. To talk politics, we'll also tell you why dogs know English and explore a rising concern that those pesky Ruskies could be hacking the presidential election. Because you know the rule, if it's night, I'm talking, I am Ellis Cannon, and Night Talk begins right now. Once again, thank you so much for the privilege of having me wherever you may be this evening, as well as the show. We welcome you to join any topic on the program tonight. You could reach us, of course, at 412-333-PCNC or at PCNC Night Talk or at Ellis Cannon on Twitter. Interesting developments. I mean, guess what else is new? Bring us Selena tonight, and with good reason. Donald Trump seems to be on offense, Hillary seems to be on defense, and by now, you know the bombs that each are throwing at each other, although the playing turtle approach that Madam Secretary seems to be using lately doesn't seem to be doing her any favors. Nor may FBI notes from its interview with Clinton prior to the conclusion that her handling of the emails didn't rise to the level of criminality. We may know more about that tomorrow because they're expected to be released at any time. But there's more, of course. We'll look at Ohio, Pennsylvania, and Michigan polling updates. We'll look at Trump's appeal to minority voters and what we expect to be more, quote, clarification from him tomorrow on immigration. Now, that would be enough. But what if I told you that all this is meaningless because the fix is in? Not because that's what Mr. Trump says, but because there are increasing concerns that the Russians could be poised to do a computer hack job at the election booth. Sounds like a movie script, of course, but what hasn't over the last year and a half on the political landscape? So we have computer security expert Albert Whale on board later in the show to discuss and share his thoughts on such matters and expertise. With that said, it's just a couple of minutes after the top of the hour here on the East Coast of the United States. We're going to adjourn and be back in 2 minutes. I'm Ellis Cannon. You're watching Night Talk on PCNC.
It's back to school time, and Channel 11 Morning News takes a different approach to getting you ready for your day. We're the only station that updates weather and traffic every 10 minutes.
We have a traffic alert for you already this morning.
During back to school time, we'll tell you what happened overnight and the breaking news happening right now. And we do it without a lot of useless chit-chat and joking around. Weather and traffic every 10 minutes. The news you need in the morning while respecting your time. That's Channel 11 Morning News.
All right, welcome back, Earthlings. A lot to get to tonight. Jenny in, and she's directing. Also, George in the back producing, and Sam the man floating around doing whatever men do. In the meantime, we're going to be joined by Selena Zito momentarily. Of course, there's a lot going on with respect to Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. We are now at that phase where this is what it's going to be a lot about going forward. And the latest, of course, on what's happening between those two and their campaigns, and the FBI concerns that hackers could be involved in the final election results. Why don't we turn to this report filed on NBC News by Steve Handelsman.
It's still a national lead for Hillary Clinton, but Donald Trump is closer in the NBC News SurveyMonkey poll. 6 points back this week. Last week it was 8. Just 4 points back among independents from 12 last week. Credit Trump's new focus.
Him being disciplined and actually acting like a regular Republican presidential candidate, attacking the person you're facing off against is helpful.
Looking into Trump's charge that big checks to Bill Clinton's charity bought access to Hillary when she was Secretary of State. CNBC's Eamon Javers analyzed Clinton's schedule, 2009 to 2011.
Well, the billionaire and celebrity meetings are relatively rare on Hillary Clinton's schedule. You see over and over again State Department meetings, foreign minister phone calls.
No sign that Clinton lacks stamina, as Trump charges now.
It's meeting after meeting, conference call after conference call, even during the famous Snowmageddon snowstorm in 2010.
With Trump running mate Mike Pence on the trail today, the FBI is concerned about tampering with the November vote. after suspected Russian hackers breached voter records in 2 states. Clinton running mate Tim Kaine today questioning Trump's ties to Moscow.
Don't you think the American voters deserve at least to get to the bottom of why Trump's relationship with Russia is so cozy?
One state hacked is Arizona, where how John McCain does in today's primary could show if Trump is dragging down Senate Republicans. I'm Steve Handelsman, NBC News, Washington.
All right, more on that hacking and security concern as it relates to the election a little bit later with Albert Whale. Right now, of course, Selena Zito, columnist with Real Clear Politics and editorial columnist with TheHill.com. You look lovely, you look great, you look relaxed. I know it's crazy, but you look relaxed.
It is crazy. Digging the tie.
Oh, yeah, thanks. It's my dad's. Yeah,
awesome.
I saved an X number of ties for my dad after he passed 20-something years ago, 26 years ago.
It's pretty good.
And actually, it'll be 30 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I saved a couple, and thank you. Let's talk a little bit about polls. We just heard some things that show that there's some narrowing. We heard some things related to independents. I've got some more here. This comes from The Hill, and it seems featuring Ohio, Pennsylvania, Michigan. Let me get a couple things out there. It looks from the Emerson College polls, 3 of them, that Hillary and Donald have 43% apiece in Ohio. She leads by 5 in Michigan and then 3 in Pennsylvania. Gary Johnson's in the mix. He's doing better with independents, that being Donald Trump in all 3 states. She has female, he has the male voters, and she's doing better in Ohio and Pennsylvania with younger voters, not so much in Michigan. Considering we've got national polls, we've got battleground polls, and we have much more minute polls, what do you take of the polling we've just been talking about?
Well, that poll in particular, Emerson has a pretty good reputation. They get a B+ in their ratings, and I forget what it is. It does a rating system, so it's a pretty reputable poll. It's different than what we've seen in other polls, which show Clinton having a 9 percentage point lead in this state. I'd say it may be a little more competitive than that, but maybe not 3 points, maybe around the 5-point range. You know, Trump has done, as you showed in that segment, he's become more of a regular Republican while still retaining that quirky personality that has been attractive to people who may be not ideologically line up with Trump, but that are like the attitude of him, or the notion of him that he's going to go in there and mix things up. He's going to shake things up, and so, you know, it's not even Labor Day. We still have a lot of time left. He has to make great big marks to get up to her and draw even to her, and the debates in between here and Election Day are going to be you know, sort of difficult and interesting for him, because, you know, anytime he did debates, they were always with a lot of people on the stage. He's never really had to have that one-on-one debate.
Right.
So we'll see how he performs. Clinton is not an excellent debater, but she has that kind of mind that retains, you know, unbelievable facts, and because she has all this history as being First Lady, U.S. Senator, Secretary of State, there's a lot in there that she could just whip out and just stump him with.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that when we start talking about the debates, I think the first at the end of September, it's going to be fascinating to just talk about what to expect. It's almost like the longest pregame show for a football game, but it's really going to be, I think, a very exciting time because of the unpredictability of Donald Trump and her reserve and reservoir of knowledge. So, you know, he's going to be, whatever he is, he's portrayed, whether it's a mislead or not, as somebody who's, we're just going to go wing it. I can't believe he's totally going to do that, but I think he favors that certainly than a whole lot of 3-ring binders.
Well, I had the most interesting conversation today with a political scientist out of Youngstown State. His name's Paul Sarasic, and he's just really brilliant in sort of understanding what's going on, because he, like us, Youngstown, Pittsburgh, is sort of right in the epicenter of Pennsylvania and Ohio. He is just obsessive about polls, and he's very concerned that this year we might be getting it wrong. And it's not because he's for Trump or against Clinton. He calls it the shy Tory syndrome.
What's that?
Well, it has to do with the history in the UK of Tories, of conservatives being almost consistently under represented in polling, and you see that result in the election results, where you see this surprise win by the Conservatives.
One thing to jump, and that's a very interesting insight. I think that the ballot box, relative to the polls, I do think there's going to be a distinction. We'll see how things roll up over the next several days, weeks. But I wouldn't be surprised if what people do in the polling booth, to the extent that it's not, hacked, is actually, is going to sometimes be a little bit different how people talk publicly.
And that's again the shy Tory syndrome, where people don't want to tell how they feel about things. There is a narrative that if you're for Trump, you're racist, or you're dumb, or you're an idiot, or fill it in the blank with the adjective, and people are very reluctant to say how they feel. Now, if you go out into rural Western Pennsylvania, like 15 minutes outside of Pittsburgh, anywhere,
as you have,
Trump signs are everywhere. These voters, they don't care. They'll say that they support him. You see less of that the closer you get into the city. I don't necessarily think that means that there are less people that like him, but the closer you get to urban centers, the less likelihood of people saying, yeah, I'm for Trump.
But the way our system is built, it's great PR for him to be able to see a gap narrow. And regardless of those particular optics, you just have a certain place with national polls. But at the end of the day, it's about an X number of states. It's
not a neck and neck contest.
This isn't like we're going to take all the numbers together, we're going to add them up. And if she wins, and I heard last night one analyst say, if he doesn't win Florida, we could forget the whole thing. Yeah. So, it's interesting. We have to make sure that we don't lose sight of, just again, how the system is built. I've got less than a minute and a half.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's not a neck and neck race nationally. It just isn't. It's about, you just look at 5 states. Look at Pennsylvania, Ohio, Florida, maybe Michigan, and Ohio, maybe add Nevada or one of those western states out there to make sure that he or she gets the correct number. I mean, those are the states that matter. Just because you have reliable red and reliable blue states that are always going to go a certain way. And the other thing I found interesting in Ohio's Senate race is that the campaign arm of the Democratic Party has pulled out of Ohio in support of Ted Strickland, who's running against Rob Portman. Right. Now, everyone was like, oh, my God, they're pulling out of Ohio. I think that means they're just dumping the money into North Carolina.
Well, I was about to say, North Carolina's got to be in the mix at some level. Missouri is identified as another place. And, now I guess we're up to beyond 5. But nonetheless, we've got several. And, again, to just all add up all 50 states to say this is what it is, I think is terribly misleading. It gives us a bit of a snapshot at any particular moment. When we come back, more with Selena Zito. I've got about 10 minutes planned. I want to talk about Hillary's emails. I want to talk about Donald's immigration. I'm Ellis Cannon because I can.
This is important news for women diagnosed with ovarian cancer. Talcum powder may have caused your ovarian cancer. According to many studies, long-term use of talcum powder in products such as baby powder or shower-to-shower for feminine hygiene is linked directly to ovarian cancer. If you have been diagnosed with ovarian cancer, or if a loved one died from ovarian cancer after using baby powder or shower-to-shower products containing talcum powder, you may have a right to a cash award and medical expenses. According to testimony in court, a leading baby powder company knew decades ago about the link between their baby powder and ovarian cancer, but failed to warn women of the danger. If you are an ovarian cancer victim, or if a loved one died from ovarian cancer after using talcum powder, call the law offices of Davis & Crump at the number below right now to find out if you are eligible for a cash award and medical expenses. Call the law offices of Davis & Crump right now. Our first consultation is free, and we don't get paid unless you get paid. Call now. Operators are...
Hi, Earthing. Selena Zito's with us. A little bit later, Albert Whale on stealing elections via hacking. And, oh, by the way, in the middle of this, I found a study that reflects that dogs do understand us. No shock. We'll talk about that momentarily. In the meantime, let's get back to Selena. Selena, we promised Americans that we'd talk about Trump immigration and also Trump immigration crossroads. And the reason I bring that up, in addition to Hillary's emails, is this. He's going to speak tomorrow. There's a lot of interest in what he's going to say. Some consider it to be a bit of a major policy pronouncement as it relates to immigration. Some say he's not going to go there, but he's going to try to basically reconcile a more moderate tone and approach with the hardliners that he's already gotten support from. What do you think?
First of all, I think our profession obsesses about this way too much. Second of all, I think what Trump is going to do is he's going to give a strident speech about law and order, about enforcing the laws that we already have on the books, and about building an effective barrier, whether it's a wall or a combination of a wall and technology, to protect the border and to keep people out. Mainly to keep people out that have nefarious intentions.
I mean, we started to hear this week about something called a virtual wall.
Yeah, and that's something that I saw firsthand in Texas. I went down there for a couple days. I embedded with the Border Patrol, and it was an amazing apparatus that they put in place with technology. It was like sort of a combination of technology and people. And it was effective. I mean, it wasn't perfect, but it was in its infancy, and it was it was something that Governor Perry had put into place along with Homeland Security, and it was pretty interesting. But you know, I think that for those people that are expecting Trump people to be crazy upset because he's going to minimalize the deportation rhetoric, I think that will largely not be a big deal. If you look at the Pew polls and the Gallup polls on public sentiment on mass deportation, over 60, I think it's over 60-some%, I can't remember the exact number, of people, including Republicans, do not support that. Okay. They can't imagine sending people, breaking families up and sending them home.
Yes. We could agree, whether you're conservative or not. I would say the other thing would be, let's go back to something you said, the first words out of your mouth, that we, obsess over this issue. I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you what you meant by that.
We obsess about, what's he going to say? What are people going to react about? Not in like a normal way, but you know, I was just bombarded by this whole thing. It was like this blob that was on social media and in emails and on the cable news networks, and I don't think that, I think, you know, the way we're talking about breaking it down and what he could and could not say, I think is a lot more interesting than like hair on fire. Oh my God, this is going to make his base freak out. They're not going to want to be with him.
But let me ask you this: you mentioned a virtual or technologically driven wall. In addition, potentially some brick and mortar. Let's think this logically through. If, in fact, there is a capability of doing that, how serious a problem do we really have? Because, of course, we've heard a lot for the last year and a half that this is an absolutely nation-threatening issue.
It is very serious. I was down there with
then the systems they have don't work.
Right, but again, when I did this embed, it was 2006. Technology has changed dramatically since then.
Okay.
I think that we have much better capabilities to put something like this in place.
Ann Coulter, who I could do without every day of the week, says that. Ann Coulter, yeah, thank you.
Welcome.
Well, Trump's core supporters are unlikely to abandon him at this stage as it relates to immigration. There have been warnings that a betrayal on immigration would be a game changer. I think that this is a mistake, is what she says. She's hawking a book. It'll be the softest, shortest book tour ever. He has talked about softening. He's talked about the fact of being hardening. I don't know what he's talking about. However, interesting piece that I discussed on last night's show from The Atlantic. It's written by Peter Beinart. And he basically makes a very good argument which is to say that Trump never had to be specific and was not specific and won without being specific and saw professionals in his field be specific and lose to him, reinforcing the idea he didn't have to be specific. There's not been a flip-flop. There's never been a flip.
Exactly. And as I talked about, but maybe I need to you know, make it even more concrete. He's going to be strident about law and order, about enforcing the border.
I think that's important.
And he's going to be softer on the deportation thing. And so that's where you get the hard and the soft.
However, the moment you go there, not you, but the moment he goes there, is this going to be where he has been subject to criticism and vulnerability with his foreign policy, to the extent that he has one related to the Middle East. And that would be, the president has said all this. We have laws. We need to enforce the laws. We need to do something to get people in and out of courts quicker. We need to do something as it relates to, you know, the system and making it work more effectively, as opposed to mass deportation. So, you know, there may be a point where some of the hardliners on the edge say, you know what, that does sound pretty similar to something I don't like. And he may be vulnerable to that.
Maybe, but I don't think it'd be enough to put a dent into whatever he's built with them on other issues.
Fair enough.
What I have found with him is because he's so non-specific and non-ideological, and he has won with those two components that you've never seen before in American politics since William Jennings Bryan, people are more forgiving for him going in a different direction because he was never, as you said, very specific about what direction he was going.
Well, he did it intentionally for a lot of reasons. I just hit a couple of them. But, you know, policy is not exactly his bailiwick. He does not want to get into policy. He didn't want to get into policy there. He avoided it. Beinart does a great job of breaking down various debates and how he was able to avoid it. It was very conscious by him. And I think to your point earlier about their styles when it comes to debate, yes, when he gets into a one-on-one and she puts him on the spot about policy, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Then we'll find out whether or not that is something that is not any longer an effective plan. Having said that, he continues to attack her, and she him, as it relates to a variety of things. Let's talk about the FBI releasing the Clinton interview notes, 14,900 more documents coming out. You know, we've learned that in some ways, it's not as bad as people expected. In other ways, it gives enough if you really want to attack. What are your expectations, particularly as it relates to the power potentially of these FBI notes?
Well, I mean, this has always been this big gulf of unknown. I mean, you know, every time something new comes out. Well, first of all, every time we think it's over, and then all of a sudden something new comes out. And these, you know, 14,000 notes, I mean, that's a lot of data to go through. So, and that's it's a lot of information that people need to dissect. So who knows what we find in there? Who knows the impact that it has? But what it does, and it's shown in the polls in the past 2 weeks, it's dragging her down.
And this is what I was about to say earlier in our conversation, that she's given him fodder. And, you know, and this whole thing about, I read a very inspired article today that suggested this idea of turtling or otherwise you're running out the clock, not a good idea. I suggested it recently as something she could do, particularly because of how he implodes. But last couple of weeks, that snapshot's not been very good. I got to run. Outstanding job as always.
Thanks.
All right, I'll talk to you again.
Thanks.
All right, we're going to come back. I'm going to tell you, dogs do understand us. We're not going to be shocked. You'll love this.
What's new at New Image? Eye hair, and it's only available at New Image Hair Clinic. Eye hair technology targets where you're losing your hair, fills in where you are thinning and balding, and restores your hair to fuller and thicker hair.
Eye hair technology is fantastic. Thanks, New Image.
Eye hair changed my life. Thanks, New Image, for eye hair.
Is eye hair for me? You bet it is, and it can be for you too. New Image offers all of the solutions for hair loss all in one place, and we've been serving you for over 40 years. Call us right now for the latest technology for hair loss, eye hair.
Simply call 1-888-340-HAIR or go to newimagehairloss.com. Schedule your free evaluation now. Say, I want eye hair and receive $250 off.
New Image Hair Clinic. When you look good, you feel...
Welcome back, everybody. We're halfway through the show, or game, however you like to put it. I'm Ellis Cannon. Before we get to Albert Whale, I will point out that we're going to get to our dog story. Also reports that Marco Rubio won his primary down in Florida, setting up a matchup with Patrick Murphy. There are elections going on tonight, and we'll talk about those with the report in just a few minutes. In the meantime, look, we all have asked the question, do they understand us? Do the dogs? I know cats do because they're smarter than humans, but dogs, they're not exactly there in my mind. But do they understand it? And I saw this study earlier today that suggests that dogs do, in fact, understand us in some cases. I don't need to continue. Erica Edwards filed this report.
Dogs have many ways of telling us how they're feeling, from happy to not so happy, maybe even a little embarrassed sometimes. Now there's evidence dogs can understand humans too. Researchers in Hungary trained dogs to sit very still in a functional MRI scanner. Trainers then spoke words both familiar and unfamiliar to the dogs in various ways. In a sing-song, good boy voice, then in a neutral tone, good boy. Brain scans showed the dogs processed those familiar words correctly, regardless of tone and how they sounded, meaning they understood the meaning of the words. How do they do it? The theory is that dogs start to understand that the words good boy are a good thing when they're said in a positive tone. So even if our furry friends sometimes have selective hearing...
Sit down. Hey, sit.
Eventually, they figure it out.
Good sit. Good boy.
Erica Edwards, NBC News.
All right, no need to make a circus dog out of that one. Look, let's get first of all Pavlov. Okay, he knew a thing or two about this and how it worked. Just look it up. Second of all, I don't think there's any question that that report is false. And the reason it's false is it starts talking about, you know, tonality and specific words. If you don't know what I know, then you're the fool, not the dog. And that is that the dogs understand every word in the English language. We should all know that by now. In fact, my dogs read it. So from my point of view, it's old news that they understand it. I don't need to dress it up, you know, by, you know, wearing, you know, funny gear and making them feel good and say things in a certain way. I speak to them like I do my sons. I ask them who won the game last night, and they give me a look and we're okay. My biggest problem, and perhaps it's something that you need to start working on as well, I don't speak dog. I don't understand dog. They understand English, but that gives them a pretty powerful advantage when you stop and think about it, because they're thinking what I'm thinking when it's in English, but I don't know what they're thinking when it's in dog. Join me, America. I will tell you that Jenny, our director tonight, literally told me that she bought a book for her daughter at Christmas, and it was based on the premise that you can learn dog. I can't wait to read it. Woof. I'll be right back in 2 minutes with Albert Whale.
Channel 11 News 11 at 11 means 11 minutes of news and weather before the first commercial.
11 minutes of major news.
With more reporters in the field uncovering more details from important local stories.
More stories and more details right from the scene.
Plus, Severe Weather Team 11 weather before the first commercial.
I'll have your first look at weather before the first commercial.
Tonight, watch Channel 11 News 11 at 11 for 11 minutes of news and weather before the first commercial. Channel 11 News, coverage you can count on.
My sweetheart's gone, sayonara. This scarf, all that's left to remember.
What? She washed this like a month ago. How's the guy supposed to move on?
again.
If you want a scent that lasts really long, add Game Fireworks Scent Booster beads to your wash.
I asked you earlier in tonight's broadcast, what would it mean to you if we found out that all this discussion, topic, debate, disconnect again with people and so forth related to presidential politics was meaningless if there was an election that was hacked? And I said, you know what, that's movie stuff. That having been said, there are precautions being taken, and I want to get to that right now. As I mentioned earlier, we have some high-profile primaries this evening in Florida and Arizona, for sure, and there are increased concerns about the possibility, based on some other situations, that maybe those pesky Ruskies could be involved in hacking. So NBC apparently has learned that a top-secret government unit has been put together basically to find out. And without me going any further, NBC's Pete Williams filed this report.
As the nation prepares to vote 69 days from now, NBC News has learned that a top-secret U.S. intelligence group has already been tasked with looking at Russia's election-related hacking. The White House gave the mission to a Cold War legacy organization called the Foreign Denial and Deception Committee. And today, the FBI director suggested his agency is also on the case.
Those kinds of things are something we take very, very seriously and work very, very hard to understand so that we can equip the rest of our government with options for how to deal with it.
U.S. officials say after trying and failing to get into Arizona's online voter registration system, Russian hackers penetrated a similar system in Illinois, copying but not changing or damaging a small fraction of the data. But state election officials say it would be much harder for any outsider to hack into the completely separate individual devices that count the actual votes.
If it's not on the internet and you're not voting via the internet, the only way to hack into anything would be machine by machine.
States that use optical scanners still have the paper ballots as a backup. Even so, security experts warn that touchscreen systems with no paper backup still in use are much more vulnerable, especially to an insider hack.
I think really it's negligence for a Secretary of State anywhere in the country now not to have a paper trail for their votes, not to have some backup system, because the risks are just too great in this cyber Wild West.
Also today, Democrats in Congress asked the FBI to look into whether Russian hacks into the Democratic National Committee were an attempt to help Donald Trump's campaign. Tonight, intelligence officials say they doubt the Russians are trying to help Trump, but the thinking is that Russia is trying to undermine confidence in the U.S. election system, even if it can't actually manipulate the vote.
All right, let's turn our attention right now to Albert Whale. He's a friend of the show. We enjoy when he's on. He's a computer security expert and also president of IT Security Incorporated. And you almost blend into the background of the new set. I like that. That way you're sort of here, but there's sort of like this security element to your presentation.
Correct.
And so it's intentional.
It is intentional.
So you scouted the show enough again to look and say, you know what, if I come like all you're going to see is basically a talking head.
Not necessarily.
Okay, then I'm wrong. All right, so let's say this. The FBI is very seriously examining these alleged hacks at these state election offices, a couple of them. They don't take anything for granted. You saw the report. I'll get specifics. How serious do you take this?
I take this very seriously. I mean, the notion that they would get to the voter registration data, first of all, that's a lot of personally identifiable information. Second of all, that's a listing of all the voting people that are eligible to vote, and that doesn't include the people that are dead. Now, if you correlate the obituaries from, any public newspaper against the voter registration, now you have a list of people that can actually go vote because they haven't been taken off the rolls.
Okay, so it could be serious, but how real do you think it is?
I don't understand your question.
Well, that's fair. I asked you, what do you make of it, and you're very concerned. But you then talked in terms if. So the question is whether or not you believe it is.
I believe that it is very serious. I believe that they have the data from the voter registrations from both Arizona and Illinois and all the other states that you haven't heard about because they haven't talked about them. I believe that there's a lot of announcements coming through the FBI that aren't public knowledge, and deservedly so.
Right.
We don't need to alarm the public or anything like that. And I also believe that the systems that are being employed in some of the states don't meet the federal standards as well as far as cybersecurity is concerned.
How not?
Well, there aren't any standards for electoral websites that are connected to databases for the voting public.
And that is in contrast to the federal protections, which are?
The FISMA controls, the NIST 853 controls, the risk management framework, the structures that are built in to protect the national critical infrastructure, devices that are connected to the internet need to meet stringent standards.
Okay, so when I mentioned earlier that this could be stuff out of a movie, you don't necessarily, particularly with your background and the sincerity and seriousness with which you approach it, you don't look at this as something that's a throwaway line. It's something that has to be investigated.
I think it has been investigated, and I think that the findings have been found accurate.
And if that would be the case, if you go down that road, then it wouldn't take much in these battleground states where it's 3 or 4 or 5% and you start voting dead people to make a change in how things work out.
Well, so for instance, I have a friend in Minnesota that helps promote our company, and she put an alert out on her father who had died several presidents ago, and that alert was alarmed for the last 3 presidential elections. People are using dead people to vote to modify the elections, and this is not new news.
Okay, how newsy is it that the Russians may be involved? We've seen the Russians claim to be, perhaps not by themselves, but by other sources in other hacks as being involved in this. Do you see this as something that could go back to them as well?
Well, I think that the Russians are very adept at their skill, at their craft, at their trade, as much as the Chinese or the Romanians or the Brazilians. Anybody that's out there to do their craft, to be a hacker, certainly has been doing it for quite a while. Now, is it specifically the Russians, or are they using systems that are based in Russia, or do they have hackers that switch hats and they work for several different organizations? Maybe they use the same moniker, the same dark label that they use for identifying themselves.
You talked previously in a couple of different ways about things that could be going on behind the scenes that we don't know about, both in terms of investigation, other states that may or may not be compromised, and things of that sort, security alerts from the FBI and what have you. We've had a very aggressive and open conversation as it relates to cyber espionage and taking down bad actors. We've done that a lot with Andrew Conte, our good friend over at Pittsburgh Tribune. Well, he's actually involved right now on a freelance basis writing, but of course he's been around forever investigating that type of stuff.
Right.
Would you expect that we would approach this, not maybe necessarily using that same framework, but that same mindset from a federal perspective in doing investigation against potential actors like this?
I would think that to get anywhere internationally, we'd have to involve the federal authorities to provide that kind of investigatory procedures in place. They have the resources that can go through international borders, not just state to state, and they're the ones that can assist the states in identifying who's breached, when they've breached. You know, they put out that alert that said that 2 states have been potentially compromised. Well, how do we know that the controls are in place for the rest of the 48 states to identify that a compromise is even potentially observed?
So I'm going to go to break, but your position would be, and your approach would be, that unless proven otherwise, you're going to assume there's more than 2.
I'm going to assume there's more than 2.
We're going to come back and talk about how difficult it would be. There's one article in Politico that says it's not very hard at all. We'll talk about that and get our good friend Albert's point of view in 2 minutes.
Hey, Hanging string lights can take hours and cost big bucks. Even untangling them is a chore. Not anymore. Now America's best-selling home laser lights have all new shooting star action. Introducing Star Shower Motion. Watch the stars dance right before your eyes or freeze them with just a click. It's your choice, still or moving. Use the extra long stake to place it in your yard and switch it on to project thousands of 3D stars. Then click to make the brilliant stars explode into motion from your landscaping all the way to the rooftop. The secret is the weatherproof laser design that projects holographic stars, while the motion motor creates beautiful shimmering patterns of light. Now you can instantly have shooting stars on your walls, on your front entry, even the second floor. Star Shower Motion will cover your entire home up to 3,200 square feet, projecting from over 100 yards away. The built-in light sensor automatically turns it on when it gets dark and off when the sun comes up. Plus, electricity costs are more than 99% less than traditional lights. Now your holidays will come to life. Make Halloween spookier, July 4th more festive, and Christmas sparkle like never before. Or bring them indoors for the holidays. Even create a galaxy at bedtime.
The stars looked amazing on my home, and I didn't think it could get any better until I turned on the motion and was blown away. It was so beautiful.
Don't pay hundreds for ugly, spotty lighting. Get the vibrant green Star Shower Motion for just $49.99. But wait, we'll give you a free instant upgrade to the Deluxe Red-Green Dual Laser. But we're not done yet. Also get the Deluxe Indoor Base free. Now you can easily have stars indoors too. You'll get Star Shower Motion plus the free bonuses. So call now.
Call 1-800-377-0616 to get your Star Shower Motion. Call now or go to starshowermotion.com. Call 1-800-377-0616, 1-800-377-0616. This special offer is not available in any store. Order now.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Our final segment with Albert Whale, computer security expert, president of IT Security, Inc. And we've been talking here about the potential of hacking of the election, in effect, and whether or not there's some smoke there, whether there's fire, whether we should be concerned, whether it's legitimate, in effect, without putting words in his mouth. I think Albert considers it to be legitimate and is somewhat of the mindset that what we know now just might be the tip of the iceberg to what is going on behind the scenes. So I'll ask you this, Albert, before we get into what I asked earlier, what I mentioned earlier about how easy this is to do. Should America be concerned that this election or elections could in fact be compromised?
Well, I think we should always be cautious of the events that are going on in our society. Is this new news? To me, it's not new news, okay? I think that there has always been attempts to rig elections for the longest time, whether it be through social engineering or bringing people on a bus from a different district to an election place at another polling district, you know, without some kind of registration card to validate that that person is who they say they are, with a picture on it. How do you know what you don't know?
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about something that we heard in the report, and that was the description of the cyber Wild West. It was another person's words, not yours or mine. What did you take when you heard that?
Well, I consider that a lot of activities go on undetected and unbeknownst to the average person using the internet. Mm-hmm. Most people surf on the web, play on Facebook, maybe on Twitter, or, you know, Snapchat, and they think that everything's fine and hunky-dory. Well, behind the scenes, things are going on that are very nefarious, that entrap people into doing things that they didn't expect that they were doing, or to be sending out emails that will compromise their personal information. That's the Wild Wild West.
And yet, you know, once we start talking about this, and we start talking about, you know, different leaks and organizations known for leaks and the
WikiLeaks.
Yeah, the international hacking that we've seen and the corporate hacking that we've seen. I mean, it's all obviously very nefarious, as you might say. We heard that we need to have a backup system, and more specifically, the gentleman offered in his point of view during the first segment that, hey, listen, if you're going to be a Secretary of State of any state in the Union, you're basically derelict of your duty if you don't have some backup. I don't know if he's talking exclusively digital or paper, but what would you think?
So I think that there are different statistics and trends that are going on. If you see a polling district that votes specifically one party and there's absolutely nothing in the other party, that should set up a red flag. I think that statistically just can't happen because the laws of averages say that happening is like getting struck by lightning 100 times. So a backup system isn't a bad idea, but the problem is everybody wants the election results 5 minutes after the elections are over, right? So instead of hacking all the individual devices, why not hack the central servers where everybody collects the information, make the modifications there, send it off so that the results are sent?
Let me ask you a question that's totally off trail. Donald Trump has claimed that if he loses, it's rigged. There's a lot of arguments the president's made and others in response to that. Isn't that a bit dangerous if, in fact, you know, we're actively having a dialogue as it relates to the potential of this election being hacked, or at least hacking capabilities of sinister international figures?
So I got two statements about that comment. One of them is the Electoral College. The Electoral College doesn't always go with the common vote.
Right.
So a lot of elections in the past have been said to have been rigged because of the Electoral College. What are we doing about that, first of all? Second of all, maybe he was given some information that we weren't necessarily privy to about these hacking events before they were actually coming out. Is he doing something to change the election? I doubt it. Does he know something's going on? I don't know.
Okay, let's ask about the internet. We heard an expert say, well, look, anything you're doing online, yeah, and very much to the point you've made tonight and other times, that once you start to get online, anything could be happening in the background. But it's going to take an effort that is in all likelihood impossible for the actual electronic voting booths themselves, individually, millions of them, to be compromised. Fair?
Individually, yes. Collectively, where the polling stations send their data to, not necessarily.
Explain that to me.
So if you have, let's say, a county. Allegheny County is a good part to start with. We have our voting systems, and yes, we might be able to compromise them through Wi-Fi or Bluetooth because they're built on standard computing environments, Windows systems, and things of the sort. They've been tested and found to be lacking complete security controls, so they can be compromised individually. But if you're going to put all that effort into compromising a single machine, wouldn't it be easier to compromise the location where the machines send their data? So if I compromise that location and change the data in the database, a lot like collecting data out of the vendor database, I think that an election could be stolen in that manner.
Not necessarily pointing to Allegheny County specifically, but let's say that residual server, for the sake of me as a layperson being able to communicate.
Sure.
How can we assume that those are also potentially vulnerable, that they have safeguards in place? Or are we back to where we were 15 minutes ago, which is states don't necessarily have the same safeguards and guidelines that you would prefer?
I would say that I don't know what I don't know about their security. Surely that they have a firewall up, but it's well known by now that many compromises have been available for firewalls to get through them without your knowledge.
I have 1:30 to go and a turning fourth quarter clock. Politico writes a lengthy piece, How to Hack an Election in 7 Minutes. With Russia already meddling in 16, a ragtag group of obsessive tech experts is warning that stealing the ultimate prize, victory on November 8th, would be child's play. And basically they start off by explaining that somebody went out and bought for $82 something called a Sequoia AVC Advantage, one of the oldest and vulnerable electronic voting machines in the United States, used including in Pennsylvania. And then there's 21 pages that I didn't read that basically go on to say that it's not that hard.
It's not that hard. It's not that expensive. $82 for the voting machine, and they all talk to a centralized location. If you modify the centralized location or you hack one of them and it infects everybody else. As you know, when you have spyware and things in a corporate network, it can extend to everybody on the network.
Very good, Albert. I enjoyed the conversation, particularly as we built on, as we always do. And I'm going to assume that dogs very much understand what we just talked about and could be hacked as well.
Well, as long as they're not voting twice and I only get to vote once.
He's Albert. I'm Ellis Cannon. We appreciate that. We'll be back in 2 minutes to wrap it up.
First, you have to untangle them, then try to hang them. And after all that, they still don't work. There has to be a better way. Introducing Star Shower Laser Lights, the easiest way to light up your entire home. In just seconds, you can add thousands of colorful stars everywhere. It's so simple. Place the Star Shower Laser Light anywhere in your yard, and your house will be transformed from dark to dazzling, or go from simple to spectacular. The secret is the state-of-the-art laser technology that projects breathtaking holographic stars onto any surface, up to 600 square feet. It's an amazing laser light show that illuminates your entire home. Lighting your home with these lights is expensive, but with Star Shower Laser Lights, electricity costs are more than 99% less. Now that's a savings. Star Shower can hide discreetly among landscaping and withstand any kind of weather, and can project from over 100 yards away. So you can have decorative lights where it was impossible before. Amazing! Use them close up to highlight a favorite tree or bush for instant nighttime decoration. Just click and you're lit for a Halloween any child won't soon forget. Or in just seconds, your 4th of July will sparkle with fireworks of your own.
When I have a party, I spice it up with Star Shower. I love them, and my guests can't keep their eyes off them.
Same old Christmas decorations? Now make them exciting with Star Shower. Use them year-round, anywhere around your home. Even bring the stars indoors to light up a foyer or create a fantasy world in the little one's bedroom.
I hate hanging lights. With Star Shower, I can light up my entire house in no time, and they look amazing.
Stop wasting hours hanging old-fashioned lights or spending hundreds buying new lights year after year. Light up your home with Star Shower Laser Lights for just $39.99. Call now and we'll give you an instant upgrade to the deluxe red-green dual laser Star Shower. Here's how to order.
Call 1-800-376-8096 to get your Star Shower. Call or go to getstarshower.com. Call 1-800-376-8096. Rush delivery available. Order now.
Coverage you can count on.
They are working women who can't make the rent. They are young women kicked out of their homes. They are homeless, abandoned, and ignored by their family and friends. For 35 years, Bethlehem Haven Women's Shelter has provided help for these women in Pittsburgh. Support our work on September 20th at the Be Inspired fundraiser at the Fairmont Hotel. Join us for an evening with Goldie Hawn, honoring Dr. Edward J. Donnelly and Marilyn Sullivan, RN. Call now or visit our website to purchase tickets.
Now, Channel 11 News. Coverage you can count on.
Traffic back to normal after backups on the West End Bridge. They were caused by a pickup truck bicycle crash along West Carson around 3. Here's some of the video of the crash. A large section of West Carson blocked off as police investigated. We also got a look at the video of the truck being taken away. We're told the cyclist is in extreme critical condition right now at AGH. Police say it could be days before they know what caused a mom to crash her minivan over a hillside in Shaler. The woman had just picked up her children from Jeffrey Elementary School. Chopper 11 above that scene. She drove away from the school. She went into the township parking lot, down the hillside and into some trees. The mom was unconscious and was taken to the hospital. The children were not hurt. Police asking for your help finding this man accused of kidnapping his wife at gunpoint. Kevin Ewing is considered armed and dangerous. Police found his abandoned car earlier today. Car was about 2 miles from where police say Ewing kidnapped his wife, Tierney, at gunpoint. Now, we told you about this couple earlier this year after Tierney told a bank teller that Kevin held her hostage and brutally beat her for 12 days. Channel 11's Kara Sapita has been monitoring the search for the couple all day long.
A desperate search for a woman believed to be in grave danger. Tierney Ewing kidnapped at gunpoint early this morning, police say by her estranged husband, Kevin. We've learned she was staying at his parents' home in West Findlay Township. Neighbors on Blockhouse Run Road woke to troopers knocking on their doors, searching the wooded area and flying above.
I'm scared for everybody. I mean, it's a shame.
We are following several leads that we've been able to obtain since this occurred, obviously at midnight last night.
One lead, this parking lot where troopers found Kevin's car in the weeds late this morning, abandoned, just a couple miles from where Tierney was abducted. In July, Channel 11 reported that Tierney begged a